Hey Arturo, it's Josue. Last week, right? We finished the semester, so kudos to us for that. I'm gonna be answering some of your questions for chapter 17. So the first question I'm gonna be answering is where's the line when it involves self-disclosure? So I think as you mentioned, the one thing that should be kept in mind whenever self-disclosing, whether we should or should not do it, I think as therapists is understanding if it's going to benefit the client, right? We kind of guide ourselves under that code of ethics of benevolence, I believe is how you say that word. Or yeah, so do no harm is also involved in that, ensuring that this is going to be something that is going to benefit the client, that is going to help them in their journey to recovery. So I definitely agree with that. Also, not over dumping, right? So sometimes we are so much in our own head, and sometimes we feel like we really understand what the client is going through that it's possible for the therapist to over over discuss or really get into their personal experiences with whatever challenges the client might also be experiencing, which is actually kind of interesting. I started counseling recently, just kind of try it out. I had never done it before. I was like, well, let's see what this experience is like. And I kind of found myself over analyzing a little bit the counselor, and noticing that he did a lot of self disclosure, which, at least in my case, I wasn't coming in for anything. On the like if I was rating how the level of, you know, how troubling whatever I was going in there was for, it wasn't a 10 or anything. It's probably more around like a 3 or a 4. But regardless, I was also, while I was in that session, I was kind of thinking that if it was possibly a client who was coming in with an issue that was possibly like a 9 or a 10, maybe his form of counseling wouldn't be the best, which is not to dog on him. I mean, it was just something that I observed, and I was like, huh, that's something that maybe he didn't even really realize that he was doing, but that kind of showed me that this could come. It's easy to do this because you can kind of get comfortable into like this lay kind of interaction where it's just conversational. So something I think as therapists or as future counselors we should keep in mind. Um, so yeah, I understanding that it's client's time, not yours, as you mentioned. Great point. Um, so the next question I'm going to be answering is, in your own words, please explain why it is important to focus on yourself as the therapist. Um, you mentioned that sometimes we, as therapists, if we haven't dealt with our own personal issues, sometimes we might go into the counseling session very in our head, right? Thinking about the issues we have outside of this session or things that we're dealing with. So I think doing the internal work to be able to come in, understand that this is the client's time, focusing on helping them, how we can serve them, doing that personal work before. Even becoming a counselor, becoming a full-time counselor, helps to really start forming these habits and patterns of self-regulation, of shelving, putting things aside. All of these skills, I think, are done, not just when you become a therapist, because I do believe that this work continues, this just discovering who you are and doing the inner work, even though you can do that during being a therapist, but also before that. It helps the client, it helps you, preventing burnout. Yeah, I just think it's better all around for everyone. And then last question I'm going to be answering is, the pros and cons of having an experience that is similar, or closely related to that of the client's experience. More or less, that's what the question is saying. I think you mentioned that whenever we uh, feel like we relate to the client, I think we kind of get comfortable and we try to give too much advice, right? Rather than initially just try to understand. Kind of going back to my counseling session, I was in the session with the counselor, and I was discussing how I was also like on track to become a counselor, and he ended up, oversharing, I feel like, just a little bit throughout the session, which wasn't bad, but I think sometimes if that is done too much, it can kind of prevent um, the client from really diving into the real reason why they're there. So just being careful with that, that even though we might feel like we relate to the client, that it's still their time, that their experiences are unique, even though they might be similar to ours, whether that's in regards to substance abuse or any other issue that they might be coming in for. Just understanding that helps. So, great job. I've enjoyed seeing your videos this semester. Have a great summer. See you next semester, maybe in another class.